Hello everyone and welcome to our workshop. Today in this video I will show you how I made these paper and salt shakers. In the video I will make a paper shaker from beautiful walnut wood. The inspiration for these shakers it came from other fellow woodturner, Tomislav. He have also a YouTube channel which is Tomislav Tomažić Woodturning. He made his own version these shakers, and I really like it how he made, and because of that I made my own version, which is slightly different. My version have a rubber stopper in the bottom from where you can also refill, and the small stem can be removed, and after you remove the stem you can use it that way. I hope that you see how the paper came out. So let's get started with this video.
Here I have a piece of dark walnut wood that I'll be using for the pepper shaker. The blank measures about 100 millimeters in length and 55 millimeters in diameter. It's a perfect size for turning a small object like this, and walnut is a great choice because of its beautiful color and grain pattern. I start by mounting the walnut blank between centers, but instead of using a drive center, I use the chuck itself to drive the piece while supporting the other end with the tailstock. This allows me to turn a small tenon on one side of the blank, which I later use to hold the piece securely in the jaws of the chuck. By skipping the drive center, I also save time during the next steps. Because I don't have to remove it, I can simply tighten the jaws around the tenon and continue working right away. With the blank mounted securely, I can start shaping it into a clean cylinder. At this stage, I make long, careful passes with the tool along the entire length of the wood. The first cuts are mainly to remove the rough outer surface and to true up the piece so it spins evenly on the lathe. I continue refining the shape, taking off just a little material at a time. The goal here isn't to create the final form, but simply to bring the blank to an even diameter from one end to the other. This gives me a solid and precise foundation for everything that comes next. It may seem like a simple step, but turning the blank into a smooth cylinder is one of the most important parts of the process. A well-prepared cylinder makes all the later shaping much easier, especially when I begin forming the soft curves of the pear shape. It also ensures the two shakers will end up looking balanced as a pair. Once the blank feels perfectly round, smooth, and consistent in size, I know I'm ready to move forward with the next stage of the build. With the blank now shaped into a clean cylinder, I can move on to drilling the hole in the bottom. For this, I use a 30 mm Forstner bit, which gives me a flat and accurate opening. This hole will later be fitted with a rubber stopper, and that's what makes the shaker practical. It allows me to open and close it whenever I need, and it also gives me a simple way to refill the shaker with salt or pepper. I drill slowly and carefully to the right depth, making sure the sides of the hole are clean and smooth. After drilling, I refine the opening a little further by using a flat negative rake scraper. By widening the edge just slightly, I create a smoother transition, which will help the rubber stopper fit perfectly flush with the bottom of the shaker. At this stage, I cut a small ridge inside the opening, which will hold the rubber stopper securely in place. The stopper has a groove that needs to sit tightly against both the inner and outer surfaces. and this ridge makes sure it can't fall out during use. To make this detail, I use a small custom tool that I built myself. I normally use it for cutting circles on glasses and similar projects, but here it works perfectly for shaping the seat for the stopper. Now I mark out the overall size of the shaker with a pencil. These reference lines give me a clear idea of how tall the finished piece will be and where the main curves of the pear should start and end. Having this guide is really helpful because it keeps the proportions under control and ensures the two shakers will look consistent as a pair. With the layout marked, I begin shaping the outside using a 12 mm spindle gouge. This tool is perfect for creating flowing curves, and here I am aiming to rough in the soft, rounded lines that will define the pear form. I take my time, removing material gradually, letting the gouge glide along the surface so the curves come out smooth and natural. At this stage, I'm not looking for the final details yet, just the overall silhouette. It's about building a strong foundation for the later refinements. The more carefully I shape these first curves, the easier it will be to add the finer details later on. And while you're watching, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever made a stand for salt and pepper shakers? Or maybe seen some interesting designs? Let me know your ideas down in the comments, because at the end of this video I'll also show you the stand I'll be making in the next video. As the form slowly starts to resemble a pear, you can already see where this project is heading. But the real transformation will come in the next steps when I begin refining the details and bringing the design to life. With the main shape roughed out, I now move on to sanding. For this step, I'm using Klingspor sandpaper, starting at 180 grit. This grit is coarse enough to remove any tool marks and small ridges left from the gouge. Once the surface feels even, I switch to 240 grit, which smooths everything out and prepares the wood for the finer sanding stages later on. Taking the time to sand properly at this stage is really important, because the cleaner the surface now, the better the final finish will look once the shakers are complete. Now I drill deeper into the blank with a 16 mm bit, going all the way to the final depth of the shaker. This hole will create the main cavity where the salt or pepper will be stored. I drill slowly and carefully, checking often to make sure I reach the correct depth without overheating the bit. Once the hole is drilled, I switch to a round carbide cutter. With this tool, I carefully shape the inside of the shaker, especially in the wider lower section where the pear form begins to expand. The round cutter allows me to create a smooth curve inside, matching the outer shape and giving the shaker plenty of room for the spices. After refining the bottom section, I move up to the narrower top. Here I use a smaller scraper to finish the inside of the pear shape. The scraper lets me smooth out the walls and transition the curve cleanly from the wider bottom into the slimmer upper part. This combination of drilling, hollowing with the carbide cutter and finishing with the scraper ensures that the inside of the shaker has the same flowing lines as the outside, and it also makes the piece fully functional once the stopper is added. With the inside finished, I can now separate the shaker from the blank. For this I use a small parting tool that I actually made myself. It works perfectly for these kinds of cuts, and with it I carefully part the piece off the lathe, leaving the rough shape of the first shaker ready for the next step. I continue the work by mounting the piece in my record power Victory geared scroll chuck, this time fitted with the smaller Versalock 28 mm jaw inserts. These jaws are excellent for securely holding small pieces like this shaker, and they give me a lot of precision and control while turning. If you're interested in these jaws, you can find a link in the description below. Now I start refining the top of the shaker. I begin with a 12 mm spindle gouge to remove material quickly and establish the main curve. Once the basic form is set, I switch to a 10 mm detail gouge. With this smaller tool, I can work more precisely and refine the tighter curves at the top, giving the shaker a clean and elegant finish. For the next step, I use a 3 mm drill bit mounted in a cordless drill. With it, I carefully drill a small hole through the top of the shaker. This will be the opening where the seasoning comes out. The hole needs to be straight and clean, so the shaker works properly once it's finished. With the shaping and drilling complete, I move on to sanding the top of the shaker. This step removes any tool marks and smooths out the surface, preparing it for the final finish. Taking the time to sand properly ensures the wood will feel comfortable in the hand and will look much better once the oil and wax are applied later. Now comes one of my favorite parts, applying the finish. I'm using our own PipejaWood blend, a mix of carnauba wax and tung oil that Petra and I make ourselves. I use it on almost all of my projects because it really makes the wood come alive, gives it a warm glow, and leaves a smooth protective surface. And if you like to try this finish on your own projects, you can get it directly from us in our online shop or on our Etsy store. I've added the links down in the description, so feel free to check it out after the video. It's exactly the same mixture I'm using here, and it's been tested on every single handmade product that leaves our workshop. With the salt shaker finished, there are just a few final touches left to complete this project. For the opening where the seasoning comes out, I wanted to add a little touch of nature. I chose a small piece of dried linden branch, which works perfectly. Visually, it looks just like the stem of a pear, giving the shaker a natural and organic appearance. Functionally, it acts as a stopper for the hole, so the salt or pepper only comes out when you want it to. For the final step, I apply a bit of finish to the bottom of the shaker and then fit in the rubber stopper. This completes the piece and makes it fully functional. I really enjoy adding these small details because they make each shaker unique and bring a bit of our personality into every project.
That's all for today. I want to thank you everyone for watching this video. In my next video, I will also make a stand for these shakers, but I want that you comment in comment section which one you prefer more. So the straight one or the rounded one. If you like this video, please like and subscribe for more woodturning videos. So see you next time.